So excited today to be joined by an academic All-American, a former standout NCAA. I've actually said he played in the NBA. Accidentally, I've said you played in the WNBA. But David Magley, he's here with us today, and he's my father. So if you're out there thinking, why do they look so much alike? It's because you're the tree and I'm the branch.
Yes, I get that a lot.
You do.
A lot of people say, man, your daughter looks exactly like you.
They say we're
Never.
Twinning.
Never.
Hashtag twinning.
Never. It never has that happen. The only thing I ever get is, how hot must your wife be?
Oh.
And the truth is, smoking.
And then we get awkward right from the first moment.
Smoking
So
hot.
this is my
Mom
father.
is a smoking hottie.
She is you were just rapping before we started the show.
I don't like to rap in public.
Okay, well, we'll
Here
keep
we
it.
go. Here we go. Here we go again. What's my weakness? Evelyn.
Yeah, that's
my wife's name.
So we're here with the founder and the president of the North American Premier Basketball League, the NAPB. And what I'm most excited about is that, first off, this is a concept that's unlike anything else. Is that right?
Well, it's unique because the rest of the world has multiple levels of pro basketball. So in Germany, the top level, which would be there akin to the NBA, would be the BBL.
Okay.
Then they have Pro A, Pro B, Pro C, Pro D.
Right.
But in the U.S. and North America, in general, there isn't. There's the NBA and there's the NBA Light, which was the G League, which is a wonderful league, and the NBA is the best league in the world. But there's so many flyover markets like Albany, New York, or
Right.
Rochester, New York, or Yakima, Washington, or La Crosse, Wisconsin, or Des Moines,
Right.
Iowa. I mean, you could just keep going and going, that do not have major Division I basketball. They're not close enough to an NBA city
Yeah.
that they'll support pro basketball. And what makes our model so unique is that we're going to be very engaged in the community. It's important to us that we impact the lives of our city, much more so from an entertainment standpoint than to get into the school system. And
Right.
once in the school system, the goal is to deliver a message. One of the worst things that's going on today in all of the United States is teenage suicide is one of the highest forms of death for kids, and that's avoidable. That's
Yeah.
avoidable because we're not talking about bullying. We're not talking about cyberbullying. We're not talking about self-worth. We're not talking about the science.
Right.
So we have a way that we think is unique as pro athletes that we can come into their schools beforehand because they're that important. You're that worthy of our time that we're going to come to see you.
Yep.
And then we're going to have you come to one of our games. And those games are going to be first thing in the morning at 9:30. You're going to show up in your school buses. We're going to have entertainers that sing and rap significantly even better
So
than me.
you're not performing at halftime.
I'm probably not going to
Are
perform.
you sure you're not going to be like in a bear suit or like wrestling a tiger
There's
or
a lot
something?
of that stuff I'm thinking about, but we'll save that for second half of the year. But no, we'll deliver that message we want
Right.
to deliver. And once we deliver that message, which will be entertaining yet thought-provoking and really meet the requirements of the school system, we're going to do something that I think complements their efforts. Then we'll come out and put a game on for them.
Yeah.
And afterwards, our players will thank them and be in the stands. And then the following weeks, we'll be back in their schools seeing how they're going. So we'll get in relationship and be engaged with these folks. And things that most pro athletes just simply can't do with the demands in their times. You
Right.
couldn't imagine the Pacers or the Colts or someone like that doing that because they have so many other demands in their times for training and preparation because it's a multi-billion-dollar business they're in. We're a relatively small business compared to that. So we can teach our guys, we can impact lives, and it is exciting.
I like that you're going to really be layering the people that are coming to the games and creating community. So the type of players that are going to be in this league, they're former NCAA Division I athletes, they're pro players. You yourself were a player in the NCAA. You played at, where
I
did you
played
play
at the
at?
University of Kansas, the Jayhawks.
The Jayhawks, Rock Chalk.
Jayhawk, go KU. And the significance there is that every film you've ever seen me play, I've never missed a shot. Because I
Well,
always
yeah,
show you
because every
highlights.
single time that people come over to the house, every time I'd have a lovely date, they'd have to come and watch you play against a certain person. We're not going to name drop. Michael Jordan.
Well,
Back when he was Mike Jordan, you played
Yeah.
against him. Let's hear a little bit about that game.
Well, it's only a 3.5 minute clip because that's only the number of buckets I made. But it's really impressive how good I look in that deal.
With
and
Mike
Mike
Jordan.
he's left standing still quite a bit because the joys of video editing makes me look really good.
Fast forward. I
Fast
love
forward.
it. So when we moved back here to Indiana, my family, I remember you saying, we've moved back to God's country. And it's really because you're 1978 Indiana Mr. Basketball. And I am proud of you that you are in the Hall of Fame. But tell me a little bit about what it was like playing Indiana basketball. Take me back to South Bend, Indiana, LaSalle.
Well, Indiana's the best place in the world for high school basketball, and that's not arrogance. That's just fact. Dr. Naismith, who invented the game in Springfield, Massachusetts, a Canadian from Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, minister, invented the game and then moved to Kansas. And he was the first college coach at the University of Kansas, and he's got the only losing record in the history of Kansas basketball.
I did not know that.
But having said that, which you'll learn, I've got quite a bit of useless trivia. But what's most significant is that he came to watch a high school basketball game about 20 years after he invented the game in Indiana with 17,000 people. And he said basketball may have been born in Massachusetts, but it was raised in Indiana.
I love that.
So it really is a big thing. For me, as you know, you've heard the story. My mother was dying when I was in high school, and your grandmother. And when Grandma died, it became a rallying point. Everything about basketball was just, that was the distraction for our family. We were all trying to figure out where we stood. Your grandfather was trying to figure out what was his life going to look like, and all of us as kids were trying to figure out what was what. But the one thing we had to do was to come watch me play. And for me, I just responded. So the more they watched, the more family that came, and before you know it, you'd look up and the stands would be full of people that looked like me. There's a bunch of Hungarians running around there cheering for David Magley, and I seemed to play really well the more I had family there. So that lends itself to an Indiana story.
Right.
Grandma dies on a Wednesday. She requests to be buried on a Friday so that I wouldn't miss a game.
Yeah.
And that night I scored 40 points in the first half of the game.
With no three-point line.
With no three-point line.
I remember that point growing up.
And that was, I had to keep telling you that. But it became urban lore. It became legend, and people in Indiana, the writers like that.
Right.
Mr. Basketball Award is for the best player in the state. It's a hard argument to say I was really the best player in the state. Randy Whitman, who coaches in the NBA, was a great player.
Yeah.
Landon Turner, who lives in Indianapolis and won an NCAA championship along with Ted Kitchell from IU. Great players. Was I better than them? I can't say that. Was I better than Poncho Wright, who won a national championship at Louisville? I don't know. He was awfully good. And Wallace Bryant and John Hegwood went to San Francisco, and they were great players. And Dale White went to Illinois State and was good. And Jackie Moore was a Trester Award winner. He was won a state championship and went to Nebraska. And Thad Garner played at Michigan. And
it's quite a few players there.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the All-Star team, Greg Jones was the other guy I was thinking about, and Kurt Clausen, who played at Purdue. Greg Jones played at Oklahoma and Butler. These are all Division I players that are equal to, if not better than I am. I'm just a better story. I'm the story. I'm the guy that lost his mom. I'm the guy who dislocated his shoulder and had to play in a brace. I'm the guy who 2 weeks before the season ended, our second best scorer flunked off the team, and I had to score a lot of points. So that becomes a story, and in Indiana, that's a big deal.
So going back through your childhood, I mean, I've heard so many stories. Speaking of stories, growing up, I know you were always quite lovable. I remember hearing Aunt Susan say that even dogs used to follow you home. You were so amiable. My question to you is, everyone's competitive, everyone's driven. What was it that made you want to be the best?
I think if I love my parents' attention. I think that because your uncles and aunt are volatile like my father, and so my mother would motivate me to be gentle and loving and kind because I'm not like them. I'm the loving, tender-hearted one.
Right.
And then, but my father really respected winning. And the better you were, the more attention he got you. Maybe the bigger ice cream cone you got. So. And
Grandpa was a boxer.
And Grandpa was a boxer who fought on the same card as Joe Louis, and he really instilled in me. So I think with four of us, I wanted to always stand out a little bit. And the better I was, there's enough distance between my oldest brother, Pat, and me in 7 years that he would really give me praise, too, when I do well. Me and Uncle Billy would go at it some. But when Pat was far enough away that if I did well, I got a lot of love from him and Aunt Susan. So, it made me feel pretty good.
So that transition from high school into college, transition from college into the NBA, transition is always really hard, especially after skipping through college now to the NBA. What was it like when you were done in the NBA and then went to a different league? And what is it kind of that made you want to create this league today?
Yeah, I think that's speaking of transition, that's very smoothly done by you.
Do you think so?
I'm very proud of you. I had no. That's pretty good. Yeah, that's whoever wrote that. Whoever said that in your ear was great.
You know what?
But with the NBA to the CBA, which is where I went, and I played for Phil Jackson, who's, as you know, a pretty successful coach. And
you know what? Did you know this? And I'm going to put you on the spot that I actually saw him on the beach in LA when I was out at All-American when I played at Florida. The tournament I lost first round in. It made the LA Times for being a loser.
my girl.
Remember that?
Yes,
Pound
sir.
it.
Proud of you.
Pound it.
My girl.
I saw him actually, and I was like, I'm Magley's kid. And he literally was laughing. He was like on a bike, and he kept going. But yeah, that was your coach.
Yeah.
The Phil Jackson.
Yeah.
It's pretty awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, how funny would it have been if he really wasn't my coach and you could make a fool of yourself?
How funny if it wasn't Phil Jackson.
Could be.
Yeah.
Maybe just a guy with really big shoulders riding a bike. It could throw you off.
Yeah. But how was that?
But the thing about so you go from Indiana where you play in front of thousands of people every night, and you go to Kansas and you play in front of even more thousands of people every night. It's not the same feel because in Indiana there was a lot of people in a small gym, and it was really a big deal because you're playing for your hometown school, you're playing for your friends, you're playing for your family. Kansas, you're playing for university, and it's a big deal, but not like it was in Indiana. And then I went in the NBA, and I played on a really bad team, and I didn't play much. I mean,
what team was that?
Now they're called the Cleveland Cavaliers, and they're called the Cleveland Cadavers because we played like stiffs. We were terrible. And my snaps rusted shut from not playing. On the side of the warm-up, Magley going in, I can't take my pants off
because you were riding the bench. But
that was an empty venue. Then we go to Albany, New York. 3,200 seats.
And what was Albany?
Of the Patroons in the CBA.
Patroons, okay.
And that was where Phil coached. And in Albany, New York, there was nothing else to do at the time. So they just sold out every game. And it was almost like back in Indiana. Small venues, sellout crowds. It became a lot of fun again. And that, left an impression in me. So that when I would ultimately be in Canada one day as a coach, GM of a pro team, and then become the commissioner of the National Basketball League of Canada, a wonderful league, and I was there for 2 years as commissioner, 2 years as a GM head coach, and I loved it. But I remember going, this feels like being in Albany, which feels like being in Indiana.
Right.
So if I can capture that feeling all over North America, I think I've got something. There's the amount of product. So if our product is basketball, the States has the most. I mean, I'm holding combines where young men are paying me for the right to make $1,500 a month to $5,000. They're paying me all over the country. I travel, and everyone's sold out. Everyone's 50 people, 50 kids, and they're always working hard because they want a chance to be a pro basketball player. So there's a lot of great talent out there. So we have the available talent. We have the right product, I think, because we're going to get involved in the community. It's entertaining. It's fun. Basketball is different than any other sport in that we're almost naked when we're running up and down the court.
And you're in the right market. Well, you don't, not almost naked because the shorts are not nearly as short as they were.
They're shrinking back up.
They were like booty knockers.
They're coming back.
When I put those things on, I got whistles running in them. I don't know how you did it. You're 6'8".
Yeah, it wasn't a good look.
So you were drafted 28th, which is technically first round now of the NBA. Played in the NBA, played in the CBA, and that transition out of professional basketball. What was that like, and do you wish there was something like the NAPB around when you were playing?
Well, it was. You were a baby. You were a baby.
The world began in 1984.
In 1984, when everybody's world began, because Jennifer Magley was born.
Cue the eye roll, right?
And you were the most beautiful child I'd ever seen until
Jessica was born.
Jessica came,
and then DJ was born.
She was cute.
Then Daniel was born.
Daniel, not so much, but
whatever.
All four of them were adorable. But the reality is that, for me, it became difficult because we're living in a foreign country, chasing my dream, speaking a language that I could speak but Mom couldn't. They wouldn't pay us on time. They'd pay me in Belgian francs when they're supposed to pay me in U.S. dollars, and the franc was going down at the time. And so, it just became time to go home. Was I ready to give up basketball? No. If I could have come home and played professionally in the NAPB, I probably would have played 10 more years.
Yeah.
But I wanted to come home and I wanted to have more babies. I wanted to that was more important to me than being a pro basketball player at the time. So I walked away from it. But by no means was I ready to give it up. So it was something that I think we're giving. And today the NBA wants guys younger and younger.
Right.
So the number one player in college basketball last year, the top player, the Naismith Award winner, the top number one player, was a guy from Kansas, and a Kansas Jayhawk named Frank Mason. Frank Mason was the best player in college basketball, and he was the 48th pick of the NBA draft. So tell me, how can 47 guys be better than this guy?
Right.
How is that possible?
Right.
Except for he's 24 years old. And
Yeah.
the NBA's thinking, I'd rather have that same kid at 19 and have 5 more years to work with them.
Right.
So what we're going to get is a lot of guys that are probably NBA caliber, but can't ever get a shot in the NBA because they're too old. The NBA wants young guys to develop and work with, and that's just what they do.
I love the opportunity that there is for a young athlete or an athlete out there to be able to play professional sports. It reminds me a little bit of when everything cracked open for entertainment. That was kind of like with American Idol. And now it seems that auditioning and the process and really going for your dream is more attainable than ever.
Maybe we should do a reality show about our combines.
Yeah.
'Cause some of these guys are hilarious, and the efforts that they give are spectacular. But it's kind of like that. These guys are vying for an opportunity to get to a training camp, to make a team, and be a pro athlete. So that's a good comparison.
So walk me through what the game day experience is going to be like for the NAPB. What kind of communities are these in? Where are the teams around the country?
So right now we have one team in Canada, Vancouver, British Columbia, that used to have an NBA team, and then we go to Yakima, Washington, which Yakima is a city of about 90,000 people that had a CBA team for 17 years. They won 5 CBA championships, and when we brought the Sun Kings back, that's big news in Yakima.
Yeah.
Now we're in Mesquite, Nevada. Mesquite was where we came last week, was our last team that we joined for this year. Mesquite is a town of about 100,000 people that's about an hour from Las Vegas and 30 minutes from St. George, Utah. St. George, Utah is a beautiful ski capital, and Las Vegas is Las Vegas. And, we won't expect to necessarily draw from either, but we think we'll be okay. And then we're then in Kansas City, Missouri.
Yep.
We're in Owensboro, Kentucky. We're in Ohio and in the Canton area, and then we're in Albany and Rochester, New York. So we're pretty much east to west in North America. We have 3 teams coming in Mexico next year. And we have another couple teams we feel good about for Canada. There's probably about 5 more U.S. cities that we'll actually have signed up before we start season 1. So we'll start season 1 with 8 teams, knowing that season 2 is going to be a minimum of 16. And we think we can have more teams in the NBA within 3 to 4 years. Now, that doesn't mean we'll compete with the NBA. That just means we'll be every place they don't want to be, which is a whole lot of markets.
So, interesting fact I didn't know about the new G League is that they are limited to the amount of teams that the NBA has. Is that right?
In theory.
In theory. And so what's really cool about the NAPB, that it seems is that you could have just teams all over the map.
Yeah, because the
at any
NBA,
point.
the G League is a development league for the NBA.
It feeds into the NBA.
So that's why you've seen them leave Boise, Idaho, to move closer to San Jose.
Right.
That's why you see the Bakersfield, California, lose their team to Tempe, Arizona, so it can be closer to Phoenix.
Right.
Because they treat this like a JV high school program, so that I can watch this kid play in the morning, and maybe he can play at the varsity at night, maybe not, but I can watch both and develop my kids.
Right.
Which is great. But it's not about community. It's not about what we're trying to do. It's not about growing the market all over the geographies of the U.S., of North America, Canada, the United States, and Mexico. And we believe that there's something coming one day where we'll do an AmeriCup, and there'll be champions from all 3 countries playing for something that's pretty cool. And I don't know when that happens, but someday that's probably going to occur.
So I know a lot about you because you're my Faja. That means I'm your Daja, right?
Yes, you are.
I'm your Daja. Thank
You're
you for publicly acknowledging me as your Daja now.
My daughter.
It's official. I know a lot about you. I think that when most people watch an interview like this and they see the excitement, I mean, that you have a professional basketball league, you're a big-time athlete, you've got a family, a smoking hot wife, as you call her. my spine shuddered a little bit, but I love my mom, so I agree. And so everything on this surface looks like completely amazing, but what people don't often know is the journey that you went through to get here. For example, once you were done with being a pro athlete, you were doing what?
Sales.
Yeah.
I've done. I've sold everything from ceiling tiles to doors and windows to cabinets to credit card processing services, and I've been blessed to be successful at all that.
Yeah.
And I've found a lot of joy in all that, and we've had some really good times through business, and I've made a lot more money in business than I have in basketball, and we've also lost a lot of money, and it's provided for all phases of life for you all.
Right.
When I often say the difference between you and Daniel, the oldest and youngest, is your biggest concern was, Daddy, do we have to sleep in this van tonight because we're going to a tennis tournament?
No, do we have to sleep in a van down by the river?
So
that's
that
more
was,
like
yeah.
it. Yeah,
But
got no freaking heart. Got no heart.
Sometimes when you're going through business ups and downs,
Yeah.
You make adjustments, and
Right.
there were days where I no longer had the funding to stay in hotels when we traveled, and I'd stay in a van. And then there were times as businesses got better and we had success, and I had a beautiful home. We had a beautiful home in Florida. And Daniel's biggest issue is, do you think the swimming pool in our house is warm enough to swim in tonight?
Yeah, the guard gate didn't let my friend in onto the private island.
There's a difference between the way you were raised and the way sometimes the younger ones were. Now, you're all healthy and you're all happy, but things are a little bit different.
Yeah. So what was it that drove you? After you've been this big star athlete and you are, it's transitioning from a league to life. What was it that drove you to say, regardless, I'm going to be successful?
Well, honestly, I just I don't believe in plans. I don't believe in people will tell you, write your plan, see where you're going, and all of those things. And I think there's successes you can have along the way.
Mm-hmm.
But I think God rips our plans up, and he thinks they're funny. And he thinks, well, you thought you were going this way. You're not. You're going this way. I've got something even better than you planned.
Right.
But you're going to have to go through something to get there. It's not, the journey from here to here isn't easy. Sometimes you got to go through a little bit.
Yeah.
As you know, my favorite Bible verse is Romans 5:3-5, for we glory in tribulation, knowing that tribulation works patience, patience experience hope, and hope maketh not ashamed. But the part of that I like the best is glory in tribulation. Because what happens is when we're going through stuff, all we want to do is get through it as fast as we can.
Yeah, that's
and
true.
Sometimes the blessing is that. That's our blessing. That's where we're going to grow. So quit trying to get through it so fast. Stop. Let it sink in a little bit, and then let's be able to do more from it, so that one day when I have to cut some young men, I know how to have grace and dignity about that. When I have to try to help somebody transition out of a career, I know how to do that because I've done that.
Right.
Before you know it, when all those things, and I'm going, again, I wrote the poem when if life were an open book, I wish I was dyslexic. It's a lot easier to read our stories from the back to the front than the front to the back. If you read our stories from the front to the back, it's pain, suffering, loss, drugs, alcohol, all these things. But if you look on going from the back to the front, you go, wow, he went through that to get to this. He went through this to get to that. And it all makes so much sense. And that's just, that's the lessons that time gives us, is we get to start putting things in better perspective as we get a little bit older. And now I get it better. But at the time it was just like, I just want to learn. I've got to be, something great's going to have to happen. And your mother's been amazing. I mean, you really are fortunate. I've lost jobs and come home. I remember being on a plane one time. I flew out one morning when we were at Bradenton, and I flew, and the guy met me in Dallas.
This is classy
and
HR
I was
practice.
on my way to Salt Lake City.
So this was in the airport.
This was to reorganize.
In the airport.
I'm reorganizing a business I've been running for about a year. The plan was I wrote the plan. I told him what it was going to do. It did exactly what I said it would do. And he goes, hey, I got off the plane as a text message. Can you meet me? I'm like, well, how'd you get through security? How'd that happen? Where are you? Well, I'm out in front of your gate at TGI Fridays. I'm like, that's not a good sign. And I go in, So by 3:00 that afternoon, I'm back in Bradenton, and Mom is like,
So
"Wait a minute,
what happened? What happened in TGI Fridays?
He said he slid something at me and said this isn't working out, but he loved me. And when he said he loved me, I had to ask him, "You just did the most hurtful thing anybody could ever do. You fired me, but you said you loved me. What a really unique way to show love."
Oh,
but the thing is, it was we were not capable. I was not capable of letting that get me down.
And what was her response?
And my only concern was going to be your mother's response.
Yeah.
And I said, "Hey, you might want to come out. You might want to come out of the room. Let's go in the car and talk for a minute." So she called Mrs. Barber, who sent somebody over. And we went in the car, and I said, "Hey," she said, "Why are you home?" I said, "I got fired." And she's like, "Oh, okay. Well, my next class is going to happen."
She's a teacher.
My next class comes in about 2 minutes. We'll be all right. Go on home. We'll talk to you about it later. And literally, she has, even if she doesn't, she does a great job of making me think this. She has so much faith in me and what I can do that it just makes these little blips as nothing.
So perspective.
Yeah, and it's they were going to give me. I remember they were going to give me 2 weeks severance, and I said, "We have fired people for stealing and given them 6 weeks severance. How could you?" And he gave me 6 weeks severance. I'm going, "Why did I have to ask you for 6 weeks since you told me you loved me a few minutes ago? How's that possible?"
And he gave you a free TGI Friday Sunday.
I couldn't eat no more. I lost my appetite.
You lost your appetite. Well, I just want to say thank you so much for coming and chatting with me today. And kind of to wrap it up, it's amazing what you've accomplished in your life. And I'm not going to get emotional because when I cry, it's a really ugly cry,
I've seen it.
You've seen it. But I just so
There's
appreciate
no rackets around, though. That's what we're saying.
Oh, that's for another time. But I just want to say thank you so much for sharing and talking with me. If there's one piece of advice or one word of encouragement that if you could offer someone that's going through a challenging time right now, what would that be?
Well, I would number one tell them to embrace that, and embrace what we go through, and get the most from it and grow from it. But the second thing that I would tell any man, love your wife, because if you love your wife and you're passionate about your wife, you create children like you. Aww. And I look at the things that I've got. My biggest success is it's not being a basketball player. It's not being owning a league or whatever I'm doing. It's the fact that I've got 4 pretty darn incredible children, and all I can figure out is the only thing I've done right is I've loved their mom. And as the Bible says that as men we're to love our wife like Christ loved the church, which meant we were prepared to die for them, which I am for your mom, and that's why I travel, and that's why I work, and that's why I do the things I want to do. Because I want to honor her, and my reward is to see you. And when I see you, and I see not just your beauty, that's a God thing between he and mom. I clearly didn't contribute much, but your spirit, the way you've dealt with the difficulties, the way you've grown, the way you are as a person, just makes me honored that I get to be on your first podcast, and this is going to be exciting. So I think this is something that's really special, and I appreciate who you are, Jennifer. You're special.
Well, I'm excited for your league, and
you're my favorite. Don't tell the others.
Whatever, he says that about all of us kids. And if Jessica was here, he'd be the favorite, and DJ and Daniel. Thank you so much.
Daniel, not so much.
Well, pound it. You did this. We rock this thing. And for those of you that are interested to check out and follow David Magley, my Faja, on his journey, the president of the North American Premier Basketball League, check them out at www.napbasketball.com. He's quite the character to follow on Instagram. It's Coach Mags on Instagram. And you can't friend him on Facebook because he's got too many friends.
Yeah, what can I say? I'm a popular guy.
And he's super humble as well. Love you, Dad. Thank you.
Love you too. Bye-bye.